The stars above the alien world of Zarl were bright, but even their light could not shield Zira from the sudden chaos that unfolded on her home planet. She was a child of the Dryas, an advanced species known for their peaceful ways and their deep connection to the universe. Zira had always dreamed of exploring the stars, of seeing new worlds. But she never imagined that her first journey would be to a place that would turn her world upside down. Her journey started as a routine mission. She had been chosen to visit a newly discovered planet, a world known to the Dryas as Earth. It was a world that had piqued the interest of her people for years, but no Dryas had ever dared to visit it. Zira, young and eager, had volunteered. Little did she know, she was about to find herself in a battle for survival like nothing she had ever experienced. The ship's engines hummed smoothly as Zira's craft made its way through the blackness of space. But as the ship neared Earth's atmosphere, something went horribly wrong. There was a loud bang, followed by a violent shake. The craft lurched to one side, sending Zira crashing against the walls of the cockpit. The ship's systems began to blink. In and out of life, a series of alarms echoing through the small control room. Panic rose in Zira's chest as she scrambled to regain control, her breath coming in short gasps. Zira was a skilled pilot, but even her expertise couldn't save her. The ship was out of control, spiraling toward the ground. In that final moment, she saw the blue and green planet below her, its oceans and forests vibrant and alive. Then, everything went dark. When Zira awoke, she was on the surface of Earth, surrounded by the wreckage of her ship. She could feel the ground beneath her rough, harsh, unlike the soft soil of Zarl. The air was thick with moisture, and the atmosphere felt suffocating. Zira's body, accustomed to the gentler environment of her home world, struggled to breathe. She could hear strange sounds in the distance, sounds she had never encountered before. The air was filled with the cries of unknown creatures, their voices echoing in a way that sent shivers down her spine. Zira staggered to her feet, clutching her chest as she tried to steady herself. She looked around, her eyes scanning the dense forest that surrounded her. The trees were towering, with thick trunks and twisting branches that seemed to claw at the sky. The ground was littered with strange plants, sharp, spiky, and alien in every sense. She didn't know where she was, or how she had ended up here, but what she did know was that Earth was nothing like Zarl. This world, with its unpredictable weather and dangerous terrain, was nothing short of a death world for a species like hers. Zira had been taught about Earth's brutality in her studies, its wars, its predators, its natural disasters, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of it. The planet was hostile to all life forms, and Zira knew her survival would be a constant battle. In the distance, she could hear the unmistakable roar of a predator, its powerful footsteps shaking the earth beneath her. The creature was large, with massive claws and teeth that gleamed in the low light of the setting sun. Zira's heart raced as she ducked behind a large tree, her mind racing to process the situation. She knew she had to hide, to find shelter, or she would become another victim of Earth's savage wildlife. But even as she crouched in fear, something inside her stirred a deep primal urge to survive. Zira wasn't just any alien. She was a Dryas, and she had been trained for situations like this. She had been taught to adapt, to think on her feet, to overcome whatever obstacles the universe threw her way. Earth was dangerous, yes, but she was not helpless. Zira knew she had one advantage that would give her the upper hand, her intellect. As the predator's roar grew louder, Zira quickly scanned her surroundings. The trees offered little protection, but she noticed something, a small cave hidden behind a thicket of thorns. If she could make it there, she might be able to hide until the creature passed. Her instincts told her to move, and she followed them without hesitation. Zira sprinted toward the cave, her footsteps light and fast as she darted between the trees. The predator was close now, its growls reverberating through the air, but Zira reached the cave just in time. She ducked inside, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she pressed herself against the cool stone. From the safety of her hiding spot, she watched as the massive creature passed by. Its eyes scanning the area, but unable to spot her, Zira held her breath, not daring to move, until the predator's sounds faded into the distance. Only then did she allow herself to relax. She had survived. But she knew this was only the beginning. Earth was a world that would test every ounce of her strength and wit. There was no guarantee she would make it out alive. But one thing was certain. Zira would never give up. As the night descended on the strange planet, Zira sat quietly in her cave, her mind racing with plans for the days to come. She needed to find food, water, and most importantly, a way to signal her people. She had no idea how long it would take for her to get back home, or if she would ever make it out of this Deathworld alive. But she wasn't about to let Earth claim her so easily. It was a war now, and Zira was determined to fight. Asterisk. The night on Earth was unlike anything Zira had ever experienced. The sounds of the planet's predators echoed through the forest, growing louder as the hours stretched on. The air was thick and oppressive, filled with an energy she couldn't quite understand, but one that weighed heavily on her chest. Her body, so accustomed to the calm of Zaryl, felt on edge. The darkness was not kind to her, and the strange, unfamiliar atmosphere seemed almost hostile to her very existence. Zira sat inside the cave, her back pressed against the cold stone. Her breathing had slowed, but her mind raced. The first challenge had been to survive the immediate danger, but now she had to figure out her next move. The Dryas were a resourceful species, and they thrived on their ability to adapt. Earth had thrown its worst at her already, and she had survived. But she couldn't afford to think it was over. She knew better. Survival on Earth wouldn't just be about reacting. It would require planning. The first priority was water. Zira's body was accustomed to a steady supply, and she could feel the parched sensation in her throat, her tongue sticking to the roof of her mouth. The cave offered little in terms of shelter, but it would keep her hidden from the predatory creatures outside. She would need to venture out and find a water source. As she thought about it, she recalled the way Earth's oceans had looked from the sky, a possible resource, but too far and too dangerous to reach without a solid plan. Zira reached into her utility belt, a tool she'd packed for the journey to Earth. It had been meant for minor repairs and maintenance on her ship, but now it served a different purpose. She pulled out a small, portable scanner, a device that could detect electromagnetic signals, which might help her locate Earth's more advanced species or communication systems. It could also help her understand the planet's environment better. She powered it on and watched as the screen flickered to life. The device gave off a faint glow in the dark cave as it beeped softly, scanning the surroundings. Zira's eyes narrowed as she watched the results. There were strange electromagnetic pulses coming from all directions, but none of them seemed to be organized or controlled. The planet was chaotic, its energy scattered, like a puzzle with pieces that didn't fit together. Yet, one signal caught her attention, a faint, steady pulse in the distance, much stronger than the rest. It wasn't from a natural source. Could it be a signal from the natives of this world? Zira wondered. The device showed no signs of communication between species, but it was a start. She had no choice but to investigate. She knew that humans, as the dominant species on this planet, were her best hope for getting the help she needed to survive. Zira carefully deactivated the scanner, tucking it back into her belt. She needed to move quickly before another predator found its way into her territory. If Earth had been a world of peace and discovery, this would have been a much easier task. But Earth was filled with dangers. She couldn't afford to take too long to make her move. The forest outside the cave was eerily quiet now. The predators had moved on for the moment, but Zira didn't trust the calm. She slipped out of the cave and into the woods, keeping to the shadows as she moved, her senses alert for any signs of danger. The faint glow of the signal guided her path, and she followed it cautiously, moving at a steady pace to avoid drawing attention. Hours passed as she trekked through the dense underbrush, the forest around her seemingly endless. She could feel the ground beneath her becoming more treacherous, the plants growing thicker and more hostile. Vines reached out like fingers, and the air grew colder, heavy with moisture. Zira pushed forward, her determination keeping her moving even when exhaustion began to creep in. Finally, she reached a clearing, and there it was, a strange structure in the distance, surrounded by a low mist. It wasn't the advanced technology she had expected, but it was still something. A small metal tower-like structure stood in the center of the clearing, its surface covered in alien symbols. The pulsing signal was coming from this very spot. Zira approached carefully, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew the risks of being spotted, but she couldn't turn back now. The structure had been built with advanced materials far beyond anything she had seen on Earth. It hummed with a strange energy, but Zira couldn't tell if it was a relic of a past civilization or a beacon left behind by the humans. She crept closer, crouching low to the ground as she studied the structure. Her mind raced, wondering what it was. Was it an alien outpost? Or perhaps a remnant of a human project that had long since been abandoned? There were no signs of life, but the signal still pulsed steadily. Zira's hand reached for the scanner again, but just as she was about to activate it, a sudden noise broke the silence. Footsteps, faint but growing closer. Zira froze. She wasn't alone. The presence of other beings on Earth meant that she would have to be more careful than ever. There were others in this death world, and they were just as unpredictable as everything else around her. She waited. In the darkness, her eyes scanning the clearing for any sign of movement. The footsteps stopped. A figure emerged from the mist. It was a human. Zira's heart raced as she crouched down, watching from the shadows. What would this human do? Would they be an ally or an enemy? Earth had taught her to trust no one, yet here, in the heart of this unknown world, she had no choice but to find out. Asterisk. Zira held her breath, her muscles tensed, as she watched the human step into the clearing. The figure was tall and lean, clad in rugged, dirt-streaked clothing. His face was obscured by the shadows, but Zira could see the faint glow of a makeshift flashlight in his hand, casting erratic beams of light over the landscape. His eyes darted around the clearing, scanning the area as if searching for something or someone. Zira's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't know if the human was aware of her presence, or if he was simply moving through the area with no knowledge of the alien that crouched in the dark. The idea of making herself known was both terrifying and tantalizing. If he had discovered this part of Earth's wilds, he might know more about the planet's secrets than Zira could have imagined. The human crouched near the metallic structure, his flashlight flicking over its surface, revealing more of the strange symbols etched into the metal. Zira's mind raced. She had seen similar markings on ancient relics of other civilizations in her studies, but nothing like this, nothing that connected Earth to the advanced culture she had come to know. This was something different, something alien. The question burned in her mind: who had built this structure? The man ran his fingers along one of the symbols, mumbling to himself in a language Zira couldn't understand. She instinctively moved closer, careful to remain hidden behind a large rock formation that jutted out from the clearing's edge. Every instinct told her to stay out of sight, yet her curiosity urged her forward. This was the closest she had come to understanding the strange signals that had brought her to this forsaken world. The human muttered something again, louder this time, and Zira could swear she heard a hint of frustration in his voice. "Damn it! Come on," he said, his breath visible in the cold air as his flashlight flickered and dimmed. Zira's mind whirred. It seemed this human was trying to make something work, perhaps even trying to activate the structure. Could this be his purpose here? Had he, like her, been drawn to this signal? The thought both frightened and intrigued her. If the human had knowledge of this structure and its origins, he might be the key to understanding Earth's many mysteries. Zira, not one to hesitate, decided to make a move. She couldn't let this opportunity slip away. But as she prepared to take a step forward, the ground beneath her foot shifted. A branch snapped with a loud crack, echoing through the clearing. The human whipped around, his flashlight beam searching the shadows. Zira froze. She had been caught. For a heartbeat, everything stood still. The human's eyes locked onto the dark silhouette of Zira crouched behind the rocks. His expression was one of confusion, obviously unsure of what he was seeing. Zira's heart raced, her mind calculating the next few moments. She was no stranger to danger, but the unpredictability of Earth had already proven to be a deadly force. She wasn't sure if this human was an ally, but if he was an enemy, she'd need to act fast. The human raised the flashlight in her direction. And for a moment, all Zira could see was the blinding light in her eyes. She squinted, trying to gauge the human's intentions. Then, he spoke, his voice low and cautious. Who are you? Zira's breath caught in her throat. The human's words were simple, yet they carried the weight of uncertainty. Was he aware of what she was? Did he see the differences in her form, the elongated limbs, the deep blue skin, the almost unnatural grace, or did he simply see an intruder? She forced herself to take a deep breath, trying to remain calm. The last thing she wanted was for this to escalate into a confrontation. Her training had taught her to communicate first, fight only as a last resort. I am not from here, Zira said, her voice soft but steady. She knew this was a risk trusting an earthling she had just encountered, but she had no other choice. I am an explorer, a traveler. The human's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the flashlight. An explorer? He repeated, still unsure whether to trust her. His gaze flicked nervously over her form, scanning her from head to toe as if trying to make sense of her presence. Zira took another step forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. She wanted to show him she meant no harm, that she was not a threat. I am lost, she said, her voice softer now. I need help. The human didn't move for a moment, still skeptical, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. Slowly, he lowered the flashlight, though his hand remained close to a weapon at his side. Zira saw a glint of metal from his belted gun. She realized with a mix of wariness and understanding. The humans of Earth had weaponized nearly everything. I don't know if I can help you, the human said cautiously. This place it's not safe. You won't last long out here, not alone. But I'm not sure what you want, or who you are. Zira could sense the doubt in his voice, and she knew she had little time before he decided to retreat or take some kind of defensive action. She needed him to understand, to see that she wasn't a threat, but a survivor, someone who wanted to learn about this strange world just as much as he might want answers. She had no idea what Earth's inhabitants had been through, but she wasn't about to let her only chance slip away. I come from far away, Zira said slowly, carefully choosing her words. I didn't mean to come here, my ship. It crashed. I am stranded. Please, I only want to survive. The human studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, with a heavy sigh, he lowered the gun completely, his face softening slightly. I'm not sure if you're telling the truth or not, he said, shaking his head. But I've seen worse things in these woods than you. If you're really stranded, I can help you, for now. Zira exhaled slowly, relief flooding her. As she nodded in gratitude, she knew she couldn't trust him completely, not yet, but it was a start. Earth, in all its terrifying chaos, had just offered her a sliver of hope. Now it was time to learn everything she could about this world. and the human who might just help her survive it. The human turned, motioning for Zira to follow him as he began to walk deeper into the forest. The faint beams of his flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the path ahead. Zira hesitated for a moment, then followed cautiously, her senses heightened. Every step she took in this foreign world felt like a risk, but the human's offer of help had opened a door she couldn't afford to ignore. "Don't make any noise," the human muttered as he glanced over his shoulder, his voice tense. "There's worse out here than just predators. You don't want to attract attention." Zira nodded, though her mind was still racing. Earth was a death world, as she had been taught, but the more she saw of it, the more she realized just how true that description was. The dangers here were everywhere, hidden in the shadows, in the air, and in the very soil beneath her feet. She had survived the initial chaos, but this was just the beginning. She needed more than survival. She needed to understand how this world worked if she was going to make it out alive. The human led her through a labyrinth of dense trees and thick underbrush, his footsteps light and swift. His pace was unhurried, yet Zira could tell that every movement was calculated. He knew these woods like the back of his hand, and there was a quiet intensity in his movements that spoke of someone who had spent a long time navigating the dangers of Earth. They walked for what felt like hours, with Zira trying her best to stay as quiet as possible, matching her pace to his. The air grew colder, and the smell of wet earth filled her nostrils. There were strange sounds all around them, chirps and hisses from unknown creatures, the rustling of leaves from something large and unseen. Zira's eyes darted around, but she didn't dare to speak. The human had made it clear that silence was the key to survival in this world. Finally, they reached a small clearing where a makeshift camp had been set up. A fire crackled in the center, its orange glow illuminating a small area of the surrounding forest. A few rough shelters made from branches and tarps were scattered around the camp, and Zira could see that the human had clearly been living here for some time. There were no signs of high-tech equipment, no advanced tools like the ones she had expected. Instead, the camp felt primitive, almost like something a survivalist would build when left with nothing but the bare essentials. The human stopped by the fire and gestured for Zira to sit on one of the logs arranged around it. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, though his tone remained cautious. He wasn't fully trusting her yet, but at least he wasn't hostile. "I'm guessing you haven't eaten in a while. You can have some of what I've got, but don't expect much. Food around here's hard to come by." Zira nodded, her stomach growling at the mention of food. Her body, still adjusting to Earth's harsh atmosphere, was demanding energy. She could feel the drain of her muscles, the hunger gnawing at her, but her mind remained focused. She needed to understand more about this human and what he was doing on this hostile planet. The human began to unpack a small bag, pulling out a few cans and packages. Zira could smell something unfamiliar, a kind of meat that she was certain was from one of Earth's many creatures. It wasn't appealing, but she was too hungry to be picky. She accepted the food gratefully, though she hesitated at first before biting into it. Her physiology wasn't designed for Earth's food, but it was better than nothing. As she ate, she studied the human more closely. He seemed to be in his late 20s or early 30s, with short, dark hair and a face weathered by time and hardship. His eyes, though wary, held a kind of quiet determination, a glimmer of someone who had been forced to adapt to Earth's deadly environment. He had no fear in his movements, just an unspoken knowledge of how to survive. "Name's Eric," the human said after a long silence, his voice suddenly breaking the quiet tension. "I don't usually take in strangers, but I don't exactly have the luxury of turning people away these days." Zira swallowed her food, her mind quickly processing the new information. Eric, the first human she had encountered, and he had already offered her help. She had no idea if she could trust him yet, but he was all she had at the moment. "I'm Zira," she replied, her voice calm but cautious. "I didn't ask for this. I came from another world. My ship crashed." She kept her explanation simple. She had no idea how much Eric knew about space travel or the Drias, so she left out the details of her true origins. If she revealed too much too soon, it might raise more questions than answers. Eric nodded, his expression unreadable as he poked the fire with a stick. "Another world, huh? You're not the first alien I've met. Been stranded here for too long, seen a lot of strange things. But you're the first one who's ever spoken to me. Most just keep their distance." Zira raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You've seen others like me? Aliens?" Eric glanced up at her, his eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to gauge whether she was asking out of curiosity or something deeper. "Yeah," he said slowly, his voice turning more guarded. "But they don't stick around long. Some came before you, some after. They're just like us, really, stranded trying to survive. They either adapt or they don't." Zira's mind raced as she processed Eric's words. She had assumed she was the only alien on Earth, a crash survivor from an unknown species. But if Eric's words were true, there were others who had been stranded here before her. Some had adapted. But what had happened to the others? Who didn't? What happened to them? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Eric's eyes flickered with something she couldn't quite place. Pain? Regret? He hesitated, then shook his head. Some died. Some they gave up. The rest of U.S., we survive, no matter what Earth throws at us. He paused, his gaze hardening. You want to make it here? You better learn fast. Earth doesn't care who you are or where you come from. It'll kill you just the same. Zira took in his words, feeling the weight of them settle in her chest. Earth was a death world, but it was also a world of survivors. She wasn't sure if she could trust Eric fully yet, but he was right about one thing. She would need to learn fast. To survive, she'd have to do whatever it took. And she wasn't going to let Earth win. The days that followed in Eric's camp were a blur of harsh survival lessons. Zira learned quickly that Earth's challenges were not just physical, but mental. The planet had a way of grinding you down, sapping your will with every minute. And here, in the unforgiving wilderness, survival wasn't just about avoiding predators or finding food. It was about keeping your mind sharp and your wits even sharper. Eric was patient, though distant. He'd been on Earth long enough to know that trust had to be earned, not given. He never once asked Zira about her origins or her purpose. Instead, he focused on teaching her the basics, how to find clean water, which plants were safe to eat, and which ones would kill her. He taught her how to build shelters, how to read the subtle signs of danger in the forest, and how to track movement through the underbrush. But despite his lessons, Zira couldn't shake the sense of unease that gnawed at her every moment. Eric had mentioned there were others like her stranded, surviving, but he never spoke more about them. Zira couldn't help but wonder what had become of these other travelers from the stars. Why had they failed? Were they truly lost or had something far worse happened to them? She asked Eric about it one evening as they sat by the fire, the crackling flames casting long shadows on their faces. Eric, you said there were others like me, aliens who've come here before. What happened to them? Zira's voice was steady, but there was an urgency beneath it. She needed to know the truth. The pieces of Earth's mystery were starting to fall into place, but she needed more. Eric's face tightened. He poked the fire with a stick, his eyes not meeting hers. I told you. Some gave up, some died. Not all of us make it. Zira didn't let the vague answer deter her. But there must be more. If there were so many, what happened to them? Why haven't they come back? Why hasn't anyone tried to leave Earth? Eric's hand stopped mid-motion. He looked up at her then, his expression hard and full of something. Dark, you're not the first to ask questions like that. But you're here now, so maybe you'll see what I mean. Earth, isn't what you think it is. It doesn't care about where you come from or who you are. It'll kill you without blinking. Zira frowned, her instincts telling her that Eric was holding something back. His words felt like a warning, but there was something more in his voice, something that hinted at a deeper knowledge, a buried fear. Zira pressed him further. How do you know all of this? Have you seen others seen their fate? Zira asked. Leaning forward slightly, Eric remained silent for a long moment. Then, with a heavy sigh, he finally spoke, his voice low and filled with regret. There's a reason we don't stick together. The more you learn, the harder it gets. There's no going back, Zira. Earth is a prison. It keeps you here until you're too broken to fight. Zira's stomach tightened at his words. This wasn't just a story of survival, it was something more. Earth wasn't just a world full of dangers. It was a world that trapped you, that used its cruel environment to force you into submission. And that realization struck her like a hammer. She stood abruptly, needing space to think. She couldn't just accept this. If there was a way off Earth, she had to find it no matter what. Eric watched her, his expression unreadable. You're not the first to try and leave, he said quietly. But Earth doesn't let go. There are systems here, old systems. Something's pulling you in, keeping you here. And it's not just the animals or the terrain. It's something deeper. Something that holds every survivor here, whether they want to stay or not. Zira turned to face him, her mind racing. What do you mean? What's keeping us here? Eric shook his head. I don't know. But I've seen enough to know it's not just chance. It's like the planet is alive, pulling you into its grasp. It doesn't matter where you come from, how advanced you are, or what you know. Earth will find a way to break you. It'll use every weakness against you. Zira felt a chill run down her spine. The planet alive? It seemed impossible, but the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. The signals she had detected when she first arrived on Earth, the strange electromagnetic pulses, they had been guiding her, but also ensnaring her. The stars, the galaxies, the unknown expanses of the universe, it all seemed so far away now. She wasn't just stranded on a foreign planet. She was trapped on a world that had a will of its own. Eric's words haunted her that night as she lay on a bed of leaves beneath a thin shelter. She thought about the strange structure in the forest, the alien symbols, and the signals that had brought her here. Was it all part of some greater plan? Had she been brought to Earth for a reason? As the days went by, Zira's thoughts grew more focused. She couldn't trust Eric entirely, but there was one thing that was clear. Earth was more than just a deadly environment. There were forces at play here, forces that even Eric, a longtime survivor, seemed to fear. She had come to Earth to explore, to learn about a new world, but now she knew her mission was far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Earth wasn't just a death world for aliens. It was a prison, and to escape, Zira would need more than just the knowledge of survival. She needed to understand the force that bound her to this world, and she needed to find a way to break free before Earth consumed her too. ChatGPT said. Zira couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind raced with questions, theories, and an annoying sense of urgency. Earth, the prison world. Eric's words echoed in her thoughts, over and over. She had come to this planet expecting an adventure, a challenge, but the reality was far darker. Earth wasn't just hostile in a conventional sense. It had an intelligence, a force that seemed to keep you tethered here, no matter how hard you tried to leave. The worst part? She wasn't alone in this. Eric, who had been here longer than anyone else she had met, was still a prisoner, just like her. Every night, he sat by the fire, his face weathered, eyes distant, as if haunted by things he couldn't escape. Zira had begun to realize that the true danger of Earth wasn't its deadly wildlife or its unpredictable weather. It was something far older, something that had likely existed long before humans or any other species had stumbled upon it. As dawn broke the next day, casting a pale light through the dense canopy above, Zira knew that she had to act. The knowledge Eric had given her about Earth's strange, almost sentient nature only deepened the sense of dread in her. If she didn't figure out how to break free, she would be consumed by Earth, just like the others before her. She approached Eric that morning, her face set in determination. He was crouching by the fire, cooking something that smelled foul. But she ignored it. She had a more pressing matter to discuss. "Eric," she said, her voice steady, "we need to find out what's really going on here. I can't just sit around and wait for Earth to break me. We need to understand the force that's keeping us here." Eric looked up slowly, his eyes narrowing. "I told you, Zira, you're not the first to think like this. People come here, they try to fight it, they try to leave, but it doesn't work. Earth always wins." Zira shook her head, refusing to accept his defeatist attitude. "That's not good enough. I've survived longer than most. I've made it this far without giving up. And I'm not going to stop now." Eric sighed deeply, dropping the stick he was using to stir the pot. "You don't get it. I've seen what happens when people push too hard, when they get too close to what's really going on. It changes them, it breaks them." His voice lowered, barely a whisper. "I used to be like you once. But after enough time out here, you start to see things that shouldn't be possible. I've seen people vanish, Zira, gone, just like that. Earth takes them. It doesn't matter how strong you are, or what species you are. It takes." Zira stepped closer to him, her eyes hard with resolve. "Then we need to understand it. Find out what's making people disappear. Earth isn't invincible, and it's not going to trap me." Her voice dropped to a fierce whisper. "I came here for a reason. I didn't crash just to end up like everyone else. I will find a way off this planet." Eric stood up suddenly, his face hardening as he met her gaze. "You're asking for trouble, Zira, but if you're determined, I can show you something. It's not much, but it's the only lead I've got left. I hope you know what you're getting into." Without waiting for her response, he turned, grabbing a small satchel that had been lying next to the fire. "Follow me," he said, his tone grave. Zira, heart pounding with anticipation, followed Eric as he led her through the forest once again. This time, the atmosphere felt different. The air was thick, almost electric, as if the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. She noticed Eric was moving with even more caution than before, his steps measured, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. He seemed like a man on a mission. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a location Zira hadn't seen before, a series of jagged cliffs that rose up like ancient sentinels, their faces marked with strange, faded symbols. The markings, eerily similar to those on the structure in the clearing, seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive, in the pale light of the afternoon sun. "This is it," Eric said, stopping in front of a narrow crack in the cliffs. "This is where things get weird." Zira raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "What is this place?" Eric hesitated, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "I've been here before. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's a kind of doorway. I think it leads to the heart of Earth's power, the thing that keeps us all here. The thing that keeps us from leaving." Zira felt her pulse quicken. She stepped closer to the crack, instinctively reaching out toward it, but Eric grabbed her arm, holding her back. "Don't touch it," he warned sharply. "It's not just some doorway. It's a trap. I've tried before, but it pulls you in, Zira. You can't fight it. You can't control it. Earth's power is alive here, in this place. It feeds off your desperation, your fear." Zira shook her head, determination stealing her nerves. "I'm not afraid. This is the answer I've been looking for. Whatever this is, I have to see it. I can't turn back now." Eric's face twisted in a grimace, but he didn't stop her. "You're making a mistake," he muttered, his voice thick with warning. But he followed her anyway, his expression conflicted, torn between a deep-seated fear and the kind of helplessness only someone who had been on Earth too long could understand. Zira reached the crack in the cliffs, her fingers brushing the jagged stone. The moment her hand made contact, a surge of energy shot through her body. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, like a wave of raw power crashing against her. Senses pulling her deeper, urging her to let go. A deep rumble echoed from the earth beneath them, and the air around them seemed to vibrate with a pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Eric stumbled back, fear etched across his face. "Zira! Get away from it!" he shouted, his voice cracking. But it was too late. The crack widened before Zira's eyes, a portal of energy rippling outward as if the very fabric of Earth was tearing apart. For a split second, she saw something, an ancient city of towering structures, glowing symbols, and twisting forms. It was a place both alien and familiar, yet utterly alien to her understanding. Then, the world around her began to distort. The ground trembled, and everything she had known, everything she had come to believe about Earth, seemed to unravel. The true heart of Earth's power was waiting for her on the other side, and she was about to find out exactly what it was. The world around Zira twisted, and the air seemed to bend, like the very fabric of reality was being pulled apart. The crack in the cliffs expanded, its edges crackling with energy, until it was wide enough for her to step through. She could feel the pull, almost like gravity, drawing her in, urging her forward. A mixture of fear and anticipation surged through her, but she refused to step back. This was what she had come for. This was the answer. "Zira, no!" Eric's voice rang out, full of desperation. But his words were lost in the chaos, swallowed by the strange energy radiating from the portal. Zira took a deep breath, her pulse hammering in her ears, and stepped forward. Her foot crossed the threshold, and the world around her shattered. For a split second, she was weightless, suspended in a sea of flickering lights and strange symbols. She saw glimpses of distant stars, and then flashes of something darker, shadowy tendrils that reached out from the heart of the universe itself. It was as if the portal had opened not just to Earth, but to something much older, much more ancient. A part of the universe that even the Dryas had only heard whispers about. A place where time didn't move in a straight line, and the rules of reality seemed to bend and warp. Then, with a sharp breath, she was through. Zira found herself standing in a vast, surreal landscape. It was a city, but not like any city she had ever seen. Towering spires of dark metal and crystalline structures reached up into a sky filled with swirling clouds and flashes of lightning. The air here felt different, thicker, almost alive, with a low hum that seemed to reverberate through her bones. And everywhere she looked, there were those symbols glowing faintly, etched into the ground, the walls, and the very sky itself. The energy from the portal had dissipated, but the feeling of being drawn into something beyond her comprehension remained. The city stretched out before her, its streets winding and twisted in impossible ways, like they had been carved by an unseen hand. It was a place that existed outside of time and space, a place that seemed to hold the secrets of Earth, of the universe, and of the force that had kept her trapped on this planet. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the air. It was deep and resonant, filling the space around her as if coming from the very walls. "Welcome, traveler." Zira's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't alone. A figure appeared before her, stepping out from the shadows of one of the crystalline towers. It was tall, humanoid, with shimmering skin that reflected the strange light of the city. Its eyes were black voids, but they seemed to contain endless depth, an infinite darkness that felt like it could swallow her whole. Zira tensed, instinctively reaching for any weapon she had on her, but there was no need. The figure didn't make any threatening moves. It simply observed her, as if it had been waiting for her arrival. "You are not the first." The figure spoke again, its voice both ancient and timeless. "Many have come before you, drawn by the same pull, seeking to escape this world. But Earth is not a prison, as you have been led to believe. It is a part of the greater whole. And you, like those before you, are a part of that greater design." Zira's mind raced, trying to make sense of the words. "Escape?" she repeated, her voice shaky with a mix of fear and disbelief. "I was never meant to be here. I'm not from this world. I came by accident, and I only want to leave." The figure tilted its head, almost as if it were studying her. "Earth is not an accident," it said slowly. "It is a crucible. A place of transformation. It has been this way for eons. Those who are pulled here are not meant to simply survive. They are meant to change, to evolve. Earth is a catalyst, a forge for something greater. And you, Zira, have been chosen." Zira stepped back, her heart pounding. Chosen? She hadn't volunteered for this. She hadn't asked for this transformation. She had only wanted to return to her people, to escape the dangers of this death world. "I don't understand," she said, her voice trembling with frustration. "I just want to leave. Why can't I leave?" The figure extended a long, graceful arm, its hand glowing with a soft light. "To leave, you must first understand." The air around them shifted, and the ground beneath Zira's feet seemed to tremble. Earth's power is not bound to any one species. It is the heart of the world itself. It is alive, and it connects all who come here, whether they are willing or not. You came here for a reason, Zira. Earth needs you, and you need Earth. Zira shook her head, unable to comprehend the enormity of what the figure was saying. The idea that Earth was alive, that it had a purpose beyond just being a deadly planet, it was too much. She had been running from the truth, trying to survive without understanding the forces that shape this world. You are part of something greater, the figure continued. Just as the others who came before you were. And just as Earth has shaped them, it will shape you. You are a catalyst for a new beginning. Earth will not let you leave until you have fulfilled your purpose. Zira felt a wave of unease wash over her. Earth wasn't just a prison, it was a force of nature, alive and ever-changing. And she wasn't just a survivor. She was a part of its design. With the figure's words echoing in her mind, Zira turned, feeling the weight of the city pressing in on her. The path ahead was no longer about escape. It was about understanding, about finding the truth behind Earth's strange, alien power. And no matter how hard it would be, no matter how much she fought it, Zira knew she couldn't leave until she had completed the transformation that Earth demanded of her. As she stepped deeper into the heart of the city, she understood one thing. Clearly, Earth might have been a death world, but it was also the beginning of something much larger than herself. And now, there was no turning back.